Like most things, there's more than one way to outline a cat. Skin a novel. Outline a novel. There's more than one way to outline a novel. These different methods all have their unique pros and cons, and they will appeal and be useful to different types of writers. If you're struggling with your outline or just looking for a fresh way to go about it, then this is the video for you. Here are 3 different novel outlining methods and when they are most useful. A lot of these methods can also be adapted if you're planning to pants your first draft as well. They don't just apply in outlining. Since we're talking about unique outlining methods, it makes sense that the first one up is the Snowflake Method. The Snowflake Method starts with the seed of an idea and expands out from there. It might make more sense to call it the cloud method or the crystallization method, but whatever. Generally, an outline using this method starts with a single sentence or idea for what the story is going to be about. From there, the idea gets expanded and split apart. The sentence becomes a paragraph, the paragraph becomes a summary, the summary gets broken down into chapters, the chapters get broken down into scenes. You can also start from more than one idea, maybe having a separate sentence for each subplot or arc in the novel and expanding each of them separately. You can also write the whole novel this way if you don't want to work from an outline. Start with a sentence, expand that to a paragraph, then a scene, then a chapter, and so on. The Snowflake Method is great if you have an initial question or theme or premise that you want your story to be about, but you don't really know the rest. You're looking for a direction to take the story in. The one downside to this method is that you might create an outline without a lot of structure, and expanding out from a single idea to the length of a novel can be tricky. But if you've got an interesting seed of an idea and are curious where to take it, then the Snowflake Method might be for you. If all this talk of snow is making you feel a bit chilly, then don't worry. Our next method goes by a bunch of fabric-related names, so it should help warm you up. We are, of course, talking about weaving or knitting, or I think I've also seen it called quilting once. While the Snowflake Method starts from one idea and expands it out, weaving or knitting takes several different ideas or themes and attempts to connect them together. For example, you might have several ideas for interesting scenes, but no ideas yet in how to link them together, or even what order that those scenes should go in. Building an outline with the weaving method starts with these disparate scenes, figures out the order that makes the most sense, and fills in everything in between. Of all the outlining methods that we're talking about today, weaving is probably the best suited to pantsing in addition to outlining. A lot of times pantsers like to do free writes of random scenes without necessarily knowing how they fit together, and once they have those scenes written, then they start to fill in the gaps in between. If there's a downside to this method, I would say it's trying to fit all the scenes together in a way that doesn't feel stilted. Remember that with the outline, you ultimately want to put together a cohesive story. Avoid adding scenes just because they're cool or you find them interesting. Always make sure there's a reason to include it. Otherwise, the story that you knit together might have some patches that don't quite match. Or whatever. It's a stretch for me to come up with knitting-related metaphors. If all this talk of fabric feels a bit unsubstantial, then the next outlining method might be a better fit for you. I'm calling this method the blueprint method, or maybe the architect method. This is where you take your idea for a story and apply it to an existing plot structure in order to create an outline. There's all sorts of different plot structures that you can use out there. Things like the 3-act format, the 7-point story structure, 9-point story structure, 15-beat structure. I imagine there's like an 11-point story structure out there. Somebody's probably come up with like a 37-point. At first glance, this method might seem a bit rigid and formulaic. Have you ever built something from a blueprint? That's kind of the whole point. These structures can help inform what scenes should happen when, how long certain parts of the story should be, and what kind of emotional response the story should trigger. Now, this comes with the caveat that you should not just blindly follow these structures. Understand the purpose of each element of these structures and why including that element would improve your story before you add it in. Don't be afraid to deviate from any structure if it serves the needs of your story or if some element just doesn't fit. Blindly following a plot structure without understanding why is not a recipe for success. Even if you're an experienced writer, you might lean on plot structures to help you through a complex novel, or if you're maybe writing a series. Just like I'd be doing if this video was any longer, because it would be like a series. So there you have it. I hope these methods will help you when you're outlining your next novel, or on the novel that you're currently outlining, if you happen to currently be outlining a novel. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. I post new videos every Wednesday and occasionally on Friday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.